A massive winged beast flies just off of Jad's little ship, which is still weighted down by dozens, if not hundreds, of smaller beasts. Armed with only a spear, Jad planned to use this beast. They would approach it and use it to scare off the smaller animals. Freed of their burden, they could then escape, and his shipmates, Zuka and Isago, aren't sure about this plan. Phoebe agrees with Jad, though, because of course she does. Jad reiterates all of this as he pulls back his arm. He waits for the beast to get one span closer, and then he throws the spear. It lodges in the creature's wing, and it dashes forward, slamming a massive paw into the deck. It roars in pain. Jad jumps clear of the strike, grabbing one of the poles that's tied to the rigging. He swings out, away from the ship, and then back in, landing in the sail. All around them, the smaller beasts flee from the impact of the predator. It stalks closer to Jad, watching him in the sail. The young man stays where he is, quietly whispering for the monster to just move on. Thanks for scaring away the little ones, Jad says. Now, go get them. They're your supper, not us. The beast roars again. And Jad jokes that its breath alone can kill. It doesn't even need the teeth. But then the beast is gone, chasing after the flock again. Jad drops down to the deck of the ship, where he finds an excited Phoebe. "You were right," she says, referring to his plan. She then wraps her arms around his neck and kisses him. But we should look at the sails and hull, Jad says, pulling away. They took a real beating. Phoebe steps away from him. That's right. We're on our way to get Sephie. Sephie always comes first. Quietly, Jad apologizes. I'm sorry, Phoebe. God damn it, I do not want to feel bad for Phoebe. Elsewhere in the sky, Sephie narrates a new Demetria fact to us. The sky between the caverns and Cadador is clear of livable islands, but there are swampy grottos in between. Small rocks covered in algae and moss suspend vines between them. This creates a shaded canopy of green. Once upon a time, these areas were rife with pirates. Many trading ships would stop in these grottos and enjoy the shade after so much open sky and sunlight. But the protection of Cadador eliminated piracy from Demetria's skies. Until recently. Sephie flies in first, distracting the Cadadorian ship as her own ship closes in. Once the sun ship is close enough, they drop planks and board. Darren shouts for Sephie's attention, pointing out a signal flare on the upper mast of the Cadadorian ship. She needs to take out the signalman before they can set it off. Sephie volunteers to do it. She is easily the fastest among them, but Darren wants to do it. So Sephie grabs the rope that Darren has tied around her own waist, and she is off again, dragging Darren behind. The ladies land basically on the signalman, securing this part of the ship. Sephie then runs down the 5 points of a ship necessary to seize in order to claim it. The upper mast, which we just saw, the rigging, which gives you control of the lower mast, the long-range weapons like skyfire launchers and such, the captain's wheel, of course, and the sails themselves. Sephie's crew moves through each one of these locations easily, and they've done it. They've taken their first ship intentionally. Krenner hoists a flag bearing the sun sigil mark, and a cheer goes up from the crew. Roar! First victory to the Pirates of the Wind! Roar! The flag waves, blocking our view, and when it finally moves, we see a second Cadadorian sail. There are 2 ships. What do they do now? On the captured ship, the captain looks smugly at Sephie. Looks like your rebellion is over. We'll be back on our route in no time. However, a splash of skyfire scatters across the new sail. A small fighter craft from Mossentalk darts into the fray. Built into its wooden side is the sun sigil. Just behind it is a large barge, which Hondel refers to as a mobile fort. That is a week's worth of their labor right there, and it has the sign too. Another cheer goes up from the ship. And my name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 32.16 of Meridian, round 1 to Sephie. Issue 16 of Meridian features our pretty well-established creative team at this point. Author Barbara Kesel, penciler Steve McNiven, inker Tom Simmons, and colorist Morry Hollowell. They open the issue up right up where the last one left off, with Jad and his mates in danger. This makes sense, as it obviously follows up on issue 15's ending, but Kesel is also pacing this issue out really well. The Muse of Geeton finished her chat with Sephie, then appeared on Hesperia and sent Jad after our girl. Meanwhile, Sephie boarded the Sunship, encountered her first Cadadorian ship, beat it, and has now moved on to the actual act of piracy. That encounter last issue was just an accident. This was planned. So Jad's story starts with his departure from Hesperia, while Sephie's story continues in the background of events. It has to, in order to give Jad a chance to catch up to Sephie wherever she is. So we wrap up Jad's scene, and then we move on, the implication here being that Jad and his ship have continued to travel in the time that it has taken Sephie's crew to work out this plan and then take these two ships. McNiven's artwork continues to lean more into an animated feel. As the book has become more adventurous and dynamic in our past couple of issues, McNiven's art has had to shift to match that energy. The kinetic motion implied by Jad swinging on that rope when he lands in the sail is great. And seeing the small glowing energy ball that is Sephie zipping around the Cadadorian ship demonstrates just how fast and maneuverable she is in comparison. But again, we still see those acting moments that I also really like that McNiven does. Phoebe sheds a few tears after Jad doesn't really react well to her kiss. Jad has an uncomfortable rigidity to his jaw afterward, where you can see him being like he's not a fan of making Phoebe upset. She's beautiful and she's nice enough. She seems like a good person. She just isn't Sephie. Jad cares for her, just not like she cares for him. Rejecting her hurts him. It's a really good sign for his character, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Obviously, this hurts Phoebe more. When we saw Phoebe set out on this journey with Jad, it really had, the intent of winning Jad over. She didn't want Jad's eye to wander while he was rescuing Sephie, and so maybe she wanted to prove herself as just as capable and adventurous as her love rival. And Phoebe held it together through this latest trial, too. She just isn't the right person for Jad, at least as far as he's concerned. I don't want Phoebe and Jad to get together. I feel like I've gone over that before. But, God, the creative team does a really great job of making me feel for her in this scene and through these past couple of issues. Phoebe thought she had this relationship in the bag, and now it's slipping through her hands like sand. And it is sad to see. Sephie's scene, taking the Cadadorian ship, feels really solid. I love the concept of this grotto in the sky. That's some really cool world building for Demetria. And so is Sephie's breakdown on how to take control of a ship. It's such a contrast with last issue when Sephie's first encounter was this haphazard, accidental showdown. This time, she's got a plan, and her crew executes it well. And despite their mission, I like that they're all kind of, nice about it. I mean, Darren is perhaps the character who is most eager for physical violence. If this was a Chris Claremont Uncanny X-Men comic, he would describe Erin Beck as an action junkie. She's a great analog for Psylocke. But the rest of the cast members secure their posts, they punch who they have to, but they also don't punch if they don't have to. When we're shown Kotson taking the captain's post, he just kind of towers over the man, frowns at him really intensely, and then just moves his hands away from the wheel. They have a mission, and it's to destabilize Cadador, we know this, but that mission doesn't necessarily include killing people or hurting people. Not if they can help it anyway. It's such a super idealistic way to lead a rebellion, but it feels absolutely right for a character like Sephie, whose probably defining trait overall is that she is nice and considerate. The 5 points of a ship and Hondel's comments about the flying fortress also help to round out the world of Demetria. It's a little hard for us as the audience to gauge how big these ships are. No matter what artistic trick McNiven does to show Sephie flying next to a ship, there's still only so much room on a comic page to imply size. So even when we see these faraway shots, which should show us the relative size of a ship to a person, everything still looks small because the piece of paper you're looking on has a ship drawing only this big, even if the person is this big. You can go, okay, that ship's big compared to Sephie, but is that ship big in general? Telling us that it would take a week's worth of time for the loggers to gather the lumber needed to build such a craft does a really great, subtle job of describing its size. Similarly, the idea that Darren's stories about Sephie have spread and won her new allies is cool. These are all things that make Demetria feel like it exists outside the sphere of Sephie's influence or our gaze as audience members. And I think that's really great storytelling. It's a good way to build a fantasy world. It's just good writing in general, but especially for a fantasy world. As we return to the story, Hondel says that Cadador must be twitching in its sleep. Once people hear what they're doing, Sephie's going to need every ship she can to handle Cadador's response. It's going to be an adventure to outclass any brawl that they've been in before. This bit of excitement takes us back to Cadador, where we actually find Avi again. If your memory is good, you'll recall that Jad ran into Avi back in Meridian issue... Oh, it was the issue that he got there, but then No, it was the issue before he fell from the building. I want to say issue 5 or 6, if I remember correctly. Avi is from Meridian, but works on Cadador at the docks. She greets a friend, Vecca, as the newly arrived ship settles into the port. Anything exciting happen, she asks? And boy, did it. Captain Patkian steps onto the gangplank, sporting a brand new left arm. Vecca excitedly starts to talk about how the Minister of Meridian and how she can fly now, and she brought back the captain's arm. Avi pulls Vecca aside, asking to hear it all. She's got people back home who will want to hear this. We then follow Patkian to Ilahn's estate, despite the late hour. He tells Boscow that he has news of the minister's niece, and of course Boscow was like, dude, she is dead, but way more politely. But then he sees Patkian's arm. The captain nods. The girl's doing. Bosco goes to fetch his boss. After a moment, Ilahn walks into the room. So it's true. The Minister of Meridian lives. Patkian reports that she's been changed, like he has. She can fly on her own. Her unmarked vessel attacked them. They couldn't stop her. She intends to challenge his supremacy, Cadador's supremacy, in the skies. Ilahn scowls. Does she? Your arm. What reason did she give for its restoration? It was meant as a kindness and a message. There is a glow to her, Patkian adds. Seeing her in motion was simply breathtaking. Ilahn folds his arms behind his back. He thanks the captain for his report. This advances the timetable for the Meridian project, he says. Ooh. I got real worried that Patkian was about to lose more than an arm in that scene. Meanwhile, Sephie's new armada of ships sails fearlessly under a moonlit sky. The stories that Darren started are already growing ridiculous, but they have indeed spread. The forces from Mossentalk said that more people are coming, it's just going to take them time. But that heroism, that excitement, that was an outward thing. Inside, Sephie was still rather nervous and scared. Instead of celebrating with her crew, Krenner finds her at the prow of the ship, looking up to the stars. He would like to go have a private chat with her, but unfortunately for him, and fortunately for us Jeffy shippers, Kotzen finds her first. The big man squats down to talk to her. Hey, she's missing the party. Does she wish that she was up there with the other shiny people? A little, Sephie admits, but she isn't ready to join them yet. She just likes to look at them and remember. Kotzen always liked stargazing, although he's never really seen them so naked. He's used to seeing them between the leaves of trees. And it is a beautiful view. The sky is filled with thousands of bright stars. Blue, pink, green, and purple swatches of sky pulse around them. I can't tell if that's a natural part of the sky, if it's some kind of aurora borealis effect or what, but it is really pretty. Meridian has forests, Sephie says. I love the sight of stars through the trees. Kotzen, do you ever think about how someday we'll be up there, looking down on other people's tears? Well, I plan to be watching things other than tears. Yeah, we'll be watching our bodies as they decay in the trees and start to rot, and, I'm trying to bring you out of this funk, Sephie. Is this working at all? Sephie shakes her head, but she does smile. Kotzen is a better sailor than he is a counselor. And now he stands up. I'm a better seamstress than both. But anyways, you've got us uniting the cities to take down Cadador's monopoly, Sephie. You're doing a great thing. You've done great things. But it's going to get hard. You need to remember that you have friends when that happens. More than just the stars are watching you. Not far away, Krenner whispers, "You've got me." Kotzen encourages Sephie to leave the stars to their business. Night will come again, but your first victory only happens once. He then leans down and whispers into her ear, "And you might want to say something nice to Krenner. That boy has got a crush on one of us, and I don't think it's me." Sephie's narration closes out the scene. Sometimes we look too far away for answers, not realizing that they're right beside us. In Cadador, Ilahn also confers with his new allies. He is sending Rho Rhustane to Meridian. First, to build Ilahn's newly designed ship. Secondly, to bring the native population into line. He expects that Rho will appreciate some distance between them, but Ilahn does appreciate the things that Rho has shown him recently. Meridian itself will become Ilahn's first weapon in his war against her minister. Despite the slight timing gap between the two Ilahn scenes, they blend together really well. I was really caught off guard seeing Avi again. I don't remember her showing up again in Meridian at all. That is a nice bit of continuity, and then it also does some good expository work, explaining things to the audience. You know, Vecca's reaction to Sephie is the first one that we have seen outside of people who are now close to Sephie, and I really appreciate that both she and Captain Patkian seem kind of taken by her. People listen to Ilahn and they obey him because they're scared of him, right? That's the vibe that he has been cultivating for decades, and he has certainly put his sigil to use in that direction. But people are more naturally drawn to Sephie because of her inner light, now made actual manifest when she flies. Sephie is bright, happy, and optimistic, and we see that in Vecca and Patkian's reactions to her. When the captain visits Ilahn, you would think that he would be scared to do this again. I was certainly scared for him. Patkian's been here before delivering bad news, and it cost him an arm. Plus, he has clearly been in a bad place mentally since that happened. When Vecca is chatting with Avi asks if the captain spent the whole trip getting drunk in his cabin, so clearly he took losing the arm hard. But when Patkian reports to Ilahn, short of some initial hesitation, he seems calm. When he refers to Sephie's flying as breathtaking, it kind of sounds almost reverential to me. I think that if he had more of a choice, Patkian would actually side with Sephie. But more importantly, the thing that I think this scene really demonstrates to us is Ilahn's newfound and newly demonstrated sense of control. He doesn't take off Patkian's arm like he did the first time. He doesn't destroy anything like he did with Acacia when they tried to hold him hostage. He took in this bad news, processed it, and then he made a decision. Kesel works quite a bit of expositional setup into the scene where Ilahn sends Rho to Meridian, which I just want to take a second to applaud. She explains Rho taking Ilahn to Elysia, Ilahn's intent to rule it, his ability to control the gods, and Rho's new assignment, all in just a few paragraphs. I literally think it might be 1 to 2 panels of the page. And there's also a neat little globe in the scene that has raised models of Demetria's floating islands in Ilahn's study, which is something that I don't recall us seeing in the comic, but instead it was actually on one of Meridian's previous covers. The cover for issue 3 shows a languid Ilahn just leaning back in a chair, casually destroying the globe with his powers. Now, maybe we realize that Kesel was hinting a little bit at where this story was headed. I don't know how much direction was given to any of the artists regarding what a cover needs to be, and especially for Marvel or DC, which use a lot more pin-up style covers, a lot of time the cover's left up to the discretion of the artist. Oh, you're drawing a Venom cover, draw a cool Venom picture, turn it in, and if editorial approves of it, you get the go-ahead. Whether story details are necessary or not is something that would be decided by editorial and the writer. So that cover could very well have been something that Kesel asked for. It could also have just been a neat thing that Middleton was doing to demonstrate kind of Ilahn's ambitions. In either case, that is a really nice callback, and I think it's great to see it again. Back on Meridian, we do get two neat things in our final page of this comic. First, we see the Simmons and Son building on Meridian at the end of the book, which is a cute nod to inker Tom Simmons. There was a bottle of liquor in an earlier issue, I believe it was issue 11 or 12, when Risha and Ilahn were getting Rho drunk. That was also produced by Simmons, so I assume as the inker of the book he is sneaking these Easter eggs in, but I like the idea of there being this like background continuity of like, oh, maybe that particular bottle of liquor or wine was actually produced on Meridian, and the Simmons company is an actual group of characters within the world. It's super cute, and it's just a bit of a fan idea, but I really like it. We also see multiple damage from fires on Meridian, indicating that things haven't really been easy since Sephie and the other Meridianites left for Hesperia. Of course, there was the big fire at the house on the hill, Turos and Sephie's house, which Ilahn set fire to after he saved Sephie from being assassinated. So maybe that fire spread. Or maybe the Cadadorians have had to be a little rougher to get the remaining populace to fall in line. This page is actually the first time that we have been back to Meridian since John and Jad's group left in, issue 4? I wonder what that's been like for them. The final scene with Sephie and Kotzen was super endearing and just a really good bit of character work. First off, Kesel makes sure to show us that while Sephie is acting the part of the brave, cocky pirate captain, she isn't really comfortable in that role. Violence isn't something that comes naturally to Sephie. She has doubts and fears about this endeavor. And given Kesel establishing that the stars are just stars, as you and I know them, surrounding other planets populated by other people during Ilahn's recent story, she is also currently reminding us of how Sephie views them. To Sephie, the stars are people. They're her mother and her father, and she wonders how they would feel about the actions that she's taking. Kotzen reminds her, of course, that it doesn't really matter how they feel. Whatever the stars are, they are up there. The people who believe in her, who are fighting next to her, are right here all around her. They are who she is fighting for, and she needs to remember that. As a Jeffy shipper, I also appreciate Kotzen stealing this little bit of moment away from Krenner. I was emotionally piqued already with the opening fad scene, and I don't need a crappy one here at the end of the issue. When he was creeping up, preparing to say some, I'm sure, cute, endearing stuff, I was like, oh, come on, man, she and Sephie are meant to be, back off. And then Kotzen showed up, and I wiped the sweat from my brow. Whoo! Dodged that bullet for the moment. But Kotzen does tell Sephie that Krenner clearly has a crush on her outright, which does fit his earnest, open character. And it probably means that we'll see this potential romance flare up again at some point. Man, how perfect would it be if Sephie and Jad got together, which then freed up Krenner and Phoebe to date one another? I vaguely remember what happens with Sephie and Jad, very vaguely, broad strokes only. But I do not remember what happens with Phoebe and Krenner at all. I can't remember if they do actually become a thing, or if that's something that I'm subconsciously remembering, or if it's something that I'm just making up, or if it's something that doesn't happen at all. So clearly we're going to have to keep our eye on those two as we move forward. We're definitely going to be keeping an eye on those two. They're not just going to drop off the map, but let's keep an eye out. Next week, we will visit the new city of Mossentalk and meet some of Sephie's new allies. To her surprise, some old friends show up too, which serves as both reinforcement and potential distraction. Ilahn also has some visitors, and he plans to use their situation as a weapon against his niece. Join me in a week for Comic Book Breakdown episode 32.17 of Meridian Reunited at Last. If you enjoyed this episode of Breakdown, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you are not subscribed to the show, then click on that as well. I love getting feedback, and I would really appreciate it if you did so. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like to suggest a comic or a series to me, Breakdown can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and on a variety of podcast platforms, with links in the description for this episode below, as well as the email cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and attention.